The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
And hello, I'm your host, Darren Hyman. Of course, you're watching the one and only interactive talk show bringing the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. First up, a breakdown of national and international headlines with our political analyst, Mark Myritz. Plus, a Montefiore skin expert will be in studio discussing the alarming increase in teens and young adults being diagnosed with melanoma. And Bronxites are running out of banking options, and one organization is helping them find alternative solutions. We'll tell you about that. And also, not only did one South Bronx organization celebrate their 44th anniversary, they also created 100 jobs in the past year. The president will be on hand to tell us the secret to their success. And finally, for over 30 years, the communities of Kingsbridge, Riverdale, and Van Cortlandt have been represented by an organization dedicated to their cultural and economic initiatives. We'll tell you all about that, so we encourage you to stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way, because right now, we're officially open. And hello, Bronxites. I'm your host, Darren Hyman. You're watching Open. Today is Wednesday, May the 2nd, and this is the only live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York straight to your TV set. So we encourage you to feel free to give us a call at 718-960-7241. Or if you want to, you can send us an email to open@bronxnet.org. And if you're lucky enough, we'll open it up right here on the show. We also want to let you know that you can hit us up by our social networking sites, Facebook by searching under Open, BronxNet Television, and Twitter by following our page at BronxNet TV. And if you want, you can also catch us live from the website at www.bronxnet.org. Well, it is official. Mitt Romney is the Republican presidential candidate set to face President Barack Obama in the upcoming 2012 elections. Does he have what it takes to take over the White House? Or will the president win re-election? Also, what is the latest on the Secret Service scandal that is rocking both the White House and the United States, as well as what are the next steps the Obama administration must take to rectify the situation? Here, as always, to discuss these headlines and more is attorney, political analyst, and professor at SUNY Maritime, Mark Myritz, who joins us now. And welcome you to the show, Mark, and good to have you.
Good morning, Darren. How are you?
Good news. Good, doing good. Let's start with the breaking news. We had breaking news entering about the Chinese dissident, and we're understanding there's some new information that unfolds in regards to that. Let's talk about that.
Well, basically, a blind Chinese dissident was able to escape from house arrest, find his way to the United States Embassy, and be placed in hiding there, much to the embarrassment of the Chinese authorities. This dissident has been beaten and tortured by the Chinese authorities. His wife has been beaten and tortured by Chinese authorities. What has happened in the breaking news that you referred to is that Hillary Clinton is going to China for negotiations, and they've worked out a deal, which basically is that he's going to leave the embassy where he's been in hiding in the United States Embassy and go to a medical facility and then be reunited with his family, which, according to the press release this morning from the State Department, says that this is his wish. Okay, but what it is really is a delicate solution to a very indelicate problem, because the most sensitive issue for the Chinese is human rights and their violation of human rights. And it's very embarrassing for the Chinese and for the United States trying to do their macro high politics when you have a blind Chinese dissident who's been beaten and tortured hiding in the U.S. Embassy. And also, he escaped over a wall, which is absolutely a remarkable story all around, and a tremendous embarrassment to the Chinese.
What do you think this does for Chinese-U.S. relations?
Well, it's it's just another indication that the human rights issue is a tremendous problem. One would call that, someone put it, an itch that is being scratched. There's just constant problem in our relations because the Chinese are abusers of human rights. And the United States has certain big issues that it wants to satisfy or take care of with China, and this is an interference. The Chinese also persecute other groups like the Falun Gong, any group that's against them. But it's interesting to see that one of the biggest nations politically in the world, and a nation that is building its military, that is becoming a significant international power, was weakened and hobbled by a Chinese dissident who's blind, who goes away, who sneaks away from house arrest. It's remarkable. But remember also in the Soviet Union, the same thing. These societies, these dictatorships are humbled and destroyed by their treatment of human rights and the way they treat people. So at the end of the day, I don't think the Chinese, at this particular time, is a very sensitive time because President Obama, as you mentioned, is running for re-election. So he doesn't want any blips and any problems with the negotiations with the Chinese.
And let's talk about President Obama arriving in Afghanistan.
Yes,
and
yes.
The big news is the fact that he arrived in Afghanistan,
Yes,
and how
yes.
many people were able to keep it quiet. Many people are talking about the fact that even for the press corps,
Yes,
having to be
that's
able to
right.
keep it quiet for the president's
Yes,
safety,
yes.
given the wake of what's happening. First of all, what do you think this does for President Obama's public morale or public, opinion, given the fact arriving in Afghanistan a year after the death of Osama bin Laden?
Well, first of all, the press corps, actually what they did was they took away their cell phones, iPads, iPods, and everything from them, and then returned it to them on the flight. So they couldn't divulge this to anybody. And as far as the secrecy of it, it was totally secret. Now there's a big debate raging about it, whether or not it was proper, whether or not it was a campaign ploy, or whether or not it was a legitimate trip. And this is raging over the newspapers this morning. The more Republican and right-wing papers are saying, well, this is inappropriate. I think the New York Post called it shameful. But other papers are having a more reasoned approach in response to it. For the first point would be that President Obama is right to take credit for the killing of Osama bin Laden. That was a great move, a tremendous development. The problem is that what to do about Afghanistan, and admittedly this is not just Obama's fault. It's a long-standing issue, but he's basically punted it to the future by saying it's a 10-year agreement. One of the problems I think that really wasn't addressed is this kind of green-on-blue violence, such as this blue-on-green violence, where you have the Afghanistani soldiers suddenly attacking American soldiers. What they're saying is that after a certain point, the American soldiers will no longer have bases. We won't have any more U.S. bases. This is the strategic agreement or partnership that's been agreed to between President Obama and President Karzai of Afghanistan, and that American soldiers are going to operate out of Afghanistani bases. And what's worrisome about that is that we've seen on a number of occasions where trusted Afghani officers open fire on American soldiers and kill them. This is happening on a regular basis. So I think that in a way, the war in Afghanistan is really over. We really lost it. And now with the Taliban and working with the Taliban, it just was another suicide bombing that I just think took place today or yesterday, where Taliban suicide bombers attacked a facility. So this war isn't ending, and it's just we're just lost.
But on another front, though, when George Bush went over,
Right.
and declared victory, even
Yes.
though there was no clear victory.
That's right.
Many people were still in favor of that. People are saying, listen, now the president, who very clearly has the right to declare victory because he was the one who knocked off Osama bin Laden, has the right to go over and at least congratulate the troops and also spend time there. So where does that fallout come?
Well, I think that the debate is whether or not this is a campaign event or whether or not this is a legitimate event. Certainly part of it is certainly legitimate, and taking credit for Osama bin Laden's killing and meeting with troops is absolutely fine for a president to do, and he should be given our compliments and kudos for that. The timing of it is questionable, and it could be subject to interpretation and misinterpretation. Going there in secret, having the show air at 7:30 p.m. right in the middle of the evening, the timing of it, the whole thing, and of course the picture of it, and I watched it, and it's an extraordinary photo. You see the backdrop of the American vehicles and troops, and there's the president. There is no more glorious picture than Americans feel solidarity with the president and with our troops when we see that. But again, it's a campaign season, so it's subject to misinterpretation and misevaluation, even though the president's intentions might be perfectly fine.
Given the fact that the president was able to successfully take out Osama bin Laden,
Yes.
some have already said that, that should be another nail in the coffin for re-election. However, we know that that's still not the case. Mitt Romney now definitely the Republican candidate and the Republican contender. What is going to need to occur in order for Mitt Romney to be able to supersede the president in this upcoming election?
Well, it's going to be very close. Mitt Romney's problem is an inability to identify himself as a person, what he's about. People don't know what he's about. Not even Republicans know what he's about. I mean, they've kind of voted for him in the primaries, but they didn't really know his character, his demeanor, and not much about it other than he has a great family, he's devoted to family, he's a religious man, he's a Mormon, and that's another interesting issue that might become more important as we get closer to the election, because that's not really in mainstream Christianity, so people don't really understand Mormonism, similarly to how people didn't necessarily understand JFK's Catholicism, as hard as that is to believe today, but that was a big issue in that election. So I think he's got to identify himself. Also, he has a very big issue with Bain Capital. That is a big issue. Bain Capital came in, it bought companies like the Stella D'Oro Bakery, which was written up a lot in the paper, and basically bought the company and then closed it down and fired all the people. Most people will not understand how hedge funds operate, how investment banks operate. They don't get it. All they think about is the 99% against the 1%. Mitt is in the 1%. He fires people, and that's what they're going to think about. So he has a lot of hurdles to overcome. Also, he's not the incumbent. And he can't go to Afghanistan and stand in front of a TV camera in front of American troops who want to have a moment to embrace a president to thank him for doing what he did, was to kill Osama bin Laden. So that is he gets the President Obama as the foreign policy president, having done that, gets tremendous, in the Pac-Man game when it lights up, he's got the Pac-Man lit up for that one, and it's going to be very hard because if you're not the incumbent, you're not running the country. He's running the country, so that helps him a lot. So Mitt's got to identify himself, and he also has to explain what he's about and what he'll do if he would be president, and also overcome this negativity about Bain Capital, which
but not
is
only
going to hurt
that,
him.
you have to also deal with the fact that many on the Republican side are saying, listen, you haven't basically banked the conservative population either. The fact that, between Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich, they were able to tap into something that really Mitt Romney wasn't able to do. And if it hadn't been for Florida, we might be having a totally different conversation.
Well, I think that he definitely took hits from his Republican colleagues, from Santorum and, of course, Ron Paul and Newt Gingrich. But when Obama was running for election, he had a mortal battle with Hillary Clinton, and he became president. So sometimes that can strengthen you when you are opposed. The point you're correct about is that he's got to convince his Republican conservative base, including the evangelicals, that he is the candidate. What's really happening in the Republican Party is that you have this ABO, anyone but Obama. That's how Republicans are thinking. I don't know about Romney, say Republicans. I don't know what he's for. I don't know what he's about, but he's not President Obama. So that is not, in my opinion, a very strong basis on which to support a candidate. The support of a candidate has to be earnest and it has to be devoted, not just because I don't want the other person. And I think that's going to hurt, particularly among independents. And Obama, I think, is surging in a way because he's showing leadership, and he's doing a lot of interesting things as a foreign policy president, also as domestic policy president. If the economy increases, if we don't have any great crises, and actually, even if we had a crisis with Iran, which we really didn't talk about, that could also help Obama because, again, he'd be the president in position making those decisions.
I'm going to give you the final word on Iran because we do want to get something here about that.
Sure.
Talk about it.
Well, Iran has been able to kick the can down the road continuously. There just was a conference in Turkey about this. They've scheduled another conference to discuss this again. the imponderable is really, what will Israel do, and to what extent is Iran going to actually go nuclear, and to how far they're advanced. So we really don't know that. The Israelis say they're very advanced. Others say they're not. But basically, they have flouted and they have not followed any United Nations rulings. They have flouted every single and opposed every single effort to bring their nuclear program under control. The interesting thing is Iran has a tremendous amount of energy resources. So as actually a Turkish diplomat said to me one day, Mark, why does Iran need nuclear power when they have all these energy resources? It's a very, very complex thing. Plus, they're putting their facilities into hardened mountains that are not susceptible easily to bombardment. So the point is going to come, it's kind of a mathematical mapping where a decision is going to have to be made to do something about Iran or not to do something, and the imponderable is it's an election year, so we have a lot of things. Maybe we'll wake up one morning and there'll be an attack, or maybe there won't be an attack, and maybe Iran will agree to something. Impossible to tell right now what's going to happen, but I hope that Iran will stand down from what it's planning to do and not pursue its nuclear program so that we won't have a crisis. But it's impossible to know because their regime is irrational. It's run by people that don't have the kind of approach to humanity that we consider civilized. I'm sorry to say it, but it's really true, that they are marching forward, and that they said they're going to wipe another country off the face of the earth. That is not exactly something that is something to worry about tremendously.
Our political analyst, Mark Meyers, thank you for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
All righty. Well, we can catch Mark every month here on Open, where he'll give you the latest in political news and international news as well. Well, we want to tell you summer is fast approaching, and that means a lot of tanning. But unfortunately, the risk of skin cancer diagnosis also increases. We'll tell you how you can protect your skin with a few tips from an expert when we return.
Your education is the key to your future. And if you're a high school student, your next stop is college. A college education gives high school graduates a competitive advantage professionally and financially. Without it, your job opportunities are much more limited. A college diploma is a necessary requirement for any successful tomorrow. So make sure you're prepared. Speak to your guidance counselor. Visit your local colleges. Your education is the key to your future.
This is one amazing truffula tree. Can you imagine a place where these grow everywhere? Yes, it's called the forest, a magical place to enjoy with your family. Ooh. So discover the forest and explore all the wonder that's there. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
With a runner on first base. Now the big guy comes off the bat, hitting .342 with 92 RBIs and 36 homers.
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
And welcome back here to Open. With the increased use of tanning beds, particularly by young adults and especially women, there's an unfortunate rise in teens and young adults being diagnosed with melanoma, the most deadly form of skin cancer. But it's not only affecting fair-skinned people, but also individuals of all races. Now, here to tell us more about these alarming rates and what can be done is Dr. Petra Richel, oncologist and researcher from Montefiore Einstein Center for Cancer Care. And we welcome you.
Thank you.
And when we talk about the numbers of people, obviously we talked about the summer's coming and more people are engaging in getting these tans. But I think sometimes there is this misnomer that you can't get affected with skin cancer, doing tanning. So share with us a little bit about this and who's really getting highly affected here.
So I think one of the misconceptions is that only people that look like me can get melanoma. So, but it actually, my patients include all races. Melanoma doesn't discriminate. It affects Black people. It affects Asian people, Latinos. So, how do you get melanoma? Well, it's the sun. It's most importantly blistering sunburns. So it's not necessary to stay out of the sun completely. And people ask me that. They said, oh, I can never go in the sun again. That's not true. So you just have to be careful. Don't burn. Don't go in the sun between 10 and 2. And protect your children, because blistering sunburns in childhood seem to be the most dangerous thing to do.
Sometimes people don't even know that they've contracted melanoma. What are some of the signs and awareness symptoms that people can pay attention to even be on the right track of knowing?
So there is this A, B, C, D, E. What we tell patients, it's A is, is symmetry, B is borders, C is color change, D is diameter, and E is evolving. And I think that's the most important thing, evolving. Anything on you that changes, anything new, anything that grows, itches, bleeds, has to be biopsied. And so anything you think is suspicious or anything your dermatologist thinks is suspicious should be biopsied. And that leads me to anybody should get a skin screening at least once a year, and people at specific risk because they had a melanoma before or their family has a melanoma should go every 3 to 6 months.
So when you talk about skin screenings, you say anybody should just basically...
Anybody, yes. All of us should go once a year like you do your regular physical, so you should go see a dermatologist. You should strip down naked and be looked at. He has to look through your hair, your fingernails, underneath your feet, and this should be happening once a year, yes. Have you had your skin screening?
I haven't, so now you put me on blast now. I better find out if I need to go ahead and do it. So, I mean, I probably will have to take a look and see, as many people have never even thought about a skin screening. And this is, new news now, so now we have to pay attention. But let me ask you this. When it talks about melanoma and the fact of when you first have it, the thought about spreading, how does it go about spreading and how does it go about being treated?
So if you catch it early, and early is a depth of less than 1 millimeter, so that's very thin, but you can see it on the outside of the skin, so there's a possibility to catch it. Then your cure chances are 99%. The problem is when it gets deeper, it goes into the lymphatic vessels, and it goes in the lymph drain, and then the cure chances go down to 50%. And when it goes to the liver, the lung, or the brain, like it likes to do, then there is no cure. And people die within about 6 months.
Really?
So it's highly curable if caught early, which makes prevention and screening so important.
Are you finding more and more people are paying attention to the awareness of, skin cancer?
No, I actually think melanoma is on a rise. It's one of the few cancers that's actually going up in incidence. And I think it's the tanning booths and it's the bad behavior that we had like 10, 20 years ago when people were going out putting baby oil on and loom foil and everybody wanted to be as tanned as possible.
So give some advice to those people who are going out there, because listen, summer's coming, beach is getting ready to open up, and people do want to be able to enjoy the sun, and they do want to be able to sit out and enjoy the sun. What kind of advice do you give people so that way they can enjoy it but still not put themselves at high risk?
So wear sunscreen, and anything, so 30 is enough. So all these that you can see out there now, 70, 100 or so, that's just money making. So take a sunscreen for 30, factor 30, and then avoid the sun between 10 and 2, wear protective clothing. Guys wear a hat that actually covers the ears, so not a baseball hat. And if you wear a long shirt, you can go on a boat all day. I mean, you just be, reasonable about it. Everything in moderation is okay. No reason to avoid the sun.
So if someone does have, has contracted skin cancer and melanoma, what is the beginning phases for them? What process do they have to go through now?
So when you have a suspicious lesion, you usually see your dermatologist, gets biopsied, and then if it's cancer, you go see a surgeon who takes a wide excision. So for melanoma that's really small, you usually have to take 2 centimeter margins, 1 or 2 centimeter margins, and this looks like a shark bite then basically, but it has to be taken out widely. And then the lymph nodes are tested, and usually this is enough, taking it out with surgery if you catch it early enough.
And we know that cancer is definitely something that a lot of people fear and have to, and worry about. So after someone has contracted, melanoma, is there some sort of counseling, assistance that's provided for them? Because, some people just say, listen, I just was trying to have fun in the sun, and look at what happens.
So everybody that has a melanoma sees me, and then I go over the prognosis and how we're going to check. And we follow these patients every 3 months, even the one with thin melanomas. And and then it's basically following with the dermatologist and watching, because your risk of getting another one is 5%. However, if you are one of the unlucky ones that have it all over your body and you have metastatic disease, there is 2 new agents that came out, and I think they were widely in the press as well. They're immunotherapy and targeted agents, and they're very promising. So the melanoma doctor community is very excited. We actually have something to offer now for every stage.
And there is a very special cancer screening that you guys are sponsoring real soon.
That's right. I'm glad you're bringing it up.
Yes, I am.
So this Saturday, May the 5th, at our institution at Jarrett Place, the Montefiore Einstein Cancer Center for Cancer Care, we're going to have a free screening. So anybody can come. You don't need insurance. You don't need to call. You can call and make an appointment, but you don't have to. And we have 12 dermatologists that are going to see everybody without much waiting time. And I'll be there, and our surgeon is going to be there. And you can just do what you should have done a long time ago. So I'm hoping to see you there.
May the 5th, that'll be the time that people can come on out and
Saturday.
share. It's
Saturday morning, so you don't have to miss work.
Right. And how long do these screenings usually take?
Oh, it's quick. Dermatologists, you get put in a gown and it will take 10 minutes. So you'll be in and out of there quick.
That's good news. So all you got to do is come spend 10 minutes and get your screening.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Dr. Petra Ricciel, who's been here with us today, and we want to tell you, stay with us because there is more open coming up right after this. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Take my hand and start a brand new day. And together as one we'll start to see some change. Underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people, connected, interdependent, united. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.
Did you know that getting up and getting active for just 60 minutes a day is all it takes to help you get stronger, look better, and feel great?
Or that fresh fruits and veggies aren't just healthier and crunchier, they can taste better too?
Eating better and getting more active is easier than you think.
Yeah! Keep watching for some fun and easy ways to discover the magic of healthy living in your life.
America.
Let's get healthy together!
Mom, I'm not gonna go to college.
What are you saying? You've got to go to college.
Well, they offered me a job and...
Son, college is much more important.
No.
Yes.
No, Mom.
Yes.
Anyways, it's my decision.
Okay, well then decide what degree you're going to get because you will go to college.
Their tomorrow depends on your words today. The Hispanic Scholarship Fund has the information you need to help your kids go to college.
Your education is the key to your future. And if you're a high school student, your next stop is college. A college education gives high school graduates a competitive advantage professionally and financially. Without it, your job opportunities are much more limited. A college diploma is a necessary requirement for any successful tomorrow. So make sure you're prepared. Speak to your guidance counselor. Visit your local colleges. Your education is the key to your future.
There you saw more information on that free cancer screening. Remember, May the 5th from 9 to 2 p.m. Well, remember, you're here on Open, and we are a live and interactive talk show, so we encourage you all the time to join in on the conversation by calling 718-960-7241, or if you want, just send us an email to open@bronxnet.org, and we'll take a look at it, and if you're lucky enough, we will open it up right here on the show. According to the University Neighborhood Housing Program, Bronxites are running out of banking options as the borough only has 145 branches, with more than half of those belonging to 5 mega banks. For many residents, this means having to pay higher fees, as well as being unable to move their money to smaller banks because of little options they're left with. With us now to explain a little bit further what alternative solutions are available is UNHP Director, Mr. Lobo Jost, and we welcome him now to the show, and good to have you.
Great, thanks for having me.
Good, and kind of disheartening to hear that, out of the 145, branches, more than half of them are actually owned by mega banks, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's in one sense, those are the banks that offer the most convenience in terms of the locations. They've got, Chase is a good example. They've got 45 out of the 145 branches by themselves. However, a lot of those really large banks, the mega banks, tend to have higher fees associated with their accounts that make them less affordable, especially to a lot of residents in the Bronx who, median income is pretty low here. So what happens is between having the higher cost banking options being more convenient, then a lot of folks don't use them at all because they see it as like, well, I'm not gonna keep all my money. And so, and in the void that we have where there are a lot of neighborhoods without any branches, especially, folks use other kind of fringe services like check cashers or pawn shops. Mm-hmm. And those also come with a lot of fees. So not to say that those are like the best solution, but at the same time, there are a lot of banks and there's, credit union too that offer free accounts. They just don't happen to be very convenient. They might only have 1, 2, maybe at the most 4 or 5 branches throughout the Bronx.
So let's give Bronxites a little bit more on the alternatives that are actually out there and available.
Right. So like I just said, there's some of the small banks. If you happen to live close to one of them, mm-hmm. right? And a couple of the big banks do sometimes have free or low cost accounts, but you really have to shop around and see what's the best deal you could get. And then there's a couple different one is a startup bank called CheckSpring Bank that is kind of out there with a community development mission, trying to get more people who do use places like check cashers and such to come in and use their service as a bank and get what you would call banked. Because the Bronx, in a lot of ways, people call it either very underbanked or unbanked. A lot of the residents here, we have more folks who don't use any kind of traditional mainstream banking services than any other part in the city. And another alternative are credit unions, and we have there's a few credit unions in the Bronx, but there's only one that's really what you call a community development credit union that has open membership to anyone and also has totally free bank accounts, checking accounts, and savings. And they're called Bethex Federal Credit Union. And so even though they have only one location, they've developed a kind of a unique partnership with a line of check cashing stores out where they'll allow you to use the check as long as it belongs to this one network of check cashers, you could go in and make deposits and withdrawals there, and Bethex will reimburse you for any fees that are charged. So it's kind of taking the model of like what's in existence and let's use that network of things that are already out there and make it more affordable and convenient and a better model for people who are already in there.
So what questions should I be asking walking in the door with some of these institutions?
If you're looking, for a new bank account, there's a whole bunch of things you could consider, and we just came up with a pretty extensive report looking at all the different banks that have branches in the Bronx and doing an analysis of everything from like how big is the bank, their global assets. If you don't want to be part of a big bank, if you want to be part of a small bank, did they get TARP money, the bailout money? If you have like some political aversion to going to a bank that was bailed out, and then at the same time, you could look at in our report whether or not are they making loans to people in the neighborhood? Do they have a lot of foreclosures? And then finally, kind of what is probably on a lot of people's mind is like, well, what's their level of convenience and affordability? So what are the monthly fees that are charged up front? And then, try to find out like, well, what are all the other fees that come about? And something that happened with financial reform recently is that it's more difficult for banks to make money off lower income folks in the ways they had been doing with what things like they called overdraft protection and stuff, where if you go over the amount in your checking account, there's all these fees that come up about it. And there wasn't a lot of disclosure around it. And so now they're not allowed to offer that unless you sign up, like you don't default into it. But they're, looking at the legislation, there's other ways that now some of the banks are looking to make money off lower income folks because they're thinking, well, there are a lot of transactions that these folks make, and they don't have a lot of money, so we're not making that much money. I'm so like, well, how can we tap into them as like a market? And so they put out new products, such as one that's become pretty popular recently, are prepaid debit cards, which also come with a lot of fees, and sometimes it's not very well disclosed. So you might, some of these cards sound like a really good deal, but they may charge you for every time you check your balance on them. A couple dollars here, a couple dollars there, just to activate your card, and next thing you know, it's like you're paying more to use your own money than anybody would really want to.
But before we leave, give people the opportunity to tap into some information. How can they get more information in regards to this?
So on our website, which is unhp.org, right on our homepage, there's a link to a report called Banking in the Bronx. And we've got a whole introduction section about kind of understanding like what's the data in it. But probably more useful to folks is looking at the individual pages on each bank and thinking about like, well, what are my options, and also what's close to me, what's close to where I live, what's close to where I work. Is this going to be a convenient place for me? And then we're also working with other folks in the Bronx who are interested in the same topic to think about what are some new partnerships and ways that we can expand access to the lower cost checking accounts that you might find at a smaller bank or a credit union by putting up more ATMs in different locations or other kinds of partnerships similar to what BethX was doing with check cashers.
All right. Well, Lobo Jost, thanks so much for coming and sharing with us. Hopefully people will be able to tap into the site. Anything else upcoming?
Well, we'll be following up with this report. We'll probably put out a smaller brochure version that's easier for just consumers to look at instead of looking at a huge report. That'll be coming up pretty soon.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, we encourage you to stay with us because we want to tell you for several decades, One Bronx Housing Association has provided for support, I should say, for many, and now they're expanding their mission to a new borough. We're going to tell you more about that when we return after we shut it down for a few seconds.
Now, Krista, make sure you stay with her the whole time. She's new to the country. This is her first day. This is a brand new country. It's a whole different culture.
Gonna be okay.
Now, make sure you stay with her the whole time. I'll be here right after school to pick you up.
Okay, Mom.
Okay, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ignore my mom. She's so annoying. She's totally freaking out about this whole thing. She freaks out about everything. She always does that. Ugh. Ignore my mom. So, you ready for your first day in the Wicked Castle of Doom? I mean, like, seriously, it's so boring. I don't know how they could put us through this, like, every single day. How many schools do you have in your village? None.
Your education is the key to your future. And if you're a high school student, your next stop is college. A college education gives high school graduates a competitive advantage professionally and financially. Without it, your job opportunities are much more limited. A college diploma is a necessary requirement for any successful tomorrow. So make sure you're prepared. Speak to your guidance counselor. Visit your local colleges. Your education is the key to your future.
Well, the Southeast Bronx Community Organization, better known as SEBCO, is celebrating 44 years of rebuilding neighborhoods with affordable housing, offering security, management, and in the past year alone, SEBCO has created 100 jobs, and with the current state of the economy, quite a feat. The nonprofit has also partnered with developers building new projects for senior citizens in the Norwood and Morrisania sections. Peter Cantillo, president of SEBCO, now joins us on the set to talk more about SEBCO and what lies ahead. And first of all, congratulations, 44 years and rolling.
Happy to be here. We're very proud of our organization. Father Luis Gigante started in 1968 as the pastor of the St. Athanasius Church there on Tiffany Street. And as he has told me over and over, it started with 13 volunteers, and now we're proud to say that we have a company of over 400 full-time employees.
Wow, beautiful work, beautiful work. Talk to us about the initiative, because obviously 44 years ago, we know that the Bronx, they talked about the Bronx was burning, and taking on this initiative now to move to the place where the Bronx is booming, and you guys are booming at an alarming rate, because even with the economy being the way that it is, as we said in the intro, able to generate 100 jobs.
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting time for us. We started, as I said, when the Bronx was burning in the 70s. We took control, basically, of the neighborhood by, appealing to the government. Father Gigante became a city councilman in order to basically wrest the power base to bring it. And with the help of city government and the federal government, we've built over 6,000 units of housing throughout the Bronx. And as part of that initiative, we started helping the homeless families as well. Mm-hmm. We've operated 2 family shelters since 1992. And over the last year, we were given a contract to operate a men's shelter for 96 men. And that's been the biggest source of new employment. So, we've hired over 100 folks, everyone from security to maintenance to social workers. And to this day, we're still looking for social workers. We're still looking for security men. We're looking for property managers. We manage over 3,000 units of housing. And with our friends at Samaritan Village, we've expanded into Brooklyn recently, where they operate shelters for families and single individuals. And they've asked us to help them with securing those facilities. We started a facility in Queens, in Jamaica, Queens, last week. So, the opportunities are there. And of course, the biggest charge is that, we are employing people that obviously, are difficult to employ in this economy.
Not only employ, but you're talking about building up housing, and given the fact of the current state of the economy and real estate, and the fact that funds are low, and you hear about real estate development and foreclosure, you hear more people talk about losing homes, but you're actually building homes. What's been the key staple for you guys in basically being able to do development in an economy that hasn't been so prosperous?
Well, again, low-income housing, there's no end to the demand for it. And thankfully, programs with HPD in the city and HUD continue to provide resources for that. So we have partnered with other for-profit developers, specifically Jackson Development and Azimuth Development, and we're actually building right now as we speak 2 senior buildings, one up on 3600 Webster Avenue and the other one at 1115 Intervale Avenue, and we hope to have those 2 buildings up and running in the fall. Mm-hmm. So that's, again, an exciting time where we're still continuing to build.
What does it do for the neighborhood when you see new construction and you see new development and things occurring of that magnitude and that nature, given the fact of understanding that many of these neighborhoods have suffered, poor quality of life and things of that nature? What has it been able to do?
Right. No, it's a huge uplifting of the neighborhood in terms of people's hope and dreams. That neighborhood, as you know, was once known as Fort Apache. There were probably more vacant lots than there were buildings, and now you can't find a vacant lot. And so, basically over the last 25 to 30 years, that community, and I'm talking about mostly the Hunts Point area of the South Bronx, where our central sort of mission is at, properties, that were just endless, are no longer available from the city for free. So now we actually have to pay $1 million to buy a 10,000 square foot property because that's what the market will bear. But again, through programs, we're able to partner with for-profit developers who take the risk and then turn the buildings over to us for us to manage them and to provide the social services.
What do you see happening in the near future?
Well, we're going to continue to build. Obviously, the demographics of the city, the Bronx, is an aging population. And so we see senior housing as probably the biggest growth opportunity for us, and we're going to continue to pursue it.
Are there still out there, because you talk about grants and federal dollars and stuff like that, and given the fact that, a lot of this assists in being able to put up and build, are those funds out there still available to assist you in what you're doing?
Yeah, thankfully the tax credit program, which is a federal program that's administered by both the state of New York and the city of New York, continue to provide those resources on an annual basis. They're very competitive, they're difficult to get, but thankfully with our track record, we've been able to continue to access those programs.
Well, tell us, if people want to find out more information about SEPCO, what do they do?
Well, SEPCOdevelopment.org is our website. You can go on there to look at what housing opportunities we have, what jobs are available. As I said, you can talk to me personally. You could write to me at pcantillo@sepcodevelopment.org, and I'd be happy to be helpful.
You got a little booklet here giving us a little bit about the anniversary gala, and share with us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we had our 44th anniversary on Friday at the Marina Del Rey, and we were very proud to honor a lady that's also been a partner of ours, Paloma Izquierdo, and she runs the Urban Health Plan, which is a huge medical facility in the South Bronx that kind of grew up with SEPCO. So we're very proud to honor her and her growth. She actually employs over 500 people in the community. So it's a tremendous, and she's growing as well. We provide security for her facilities, and she has facilities in Queens as well. So we are very close with her and her organization. And again, these are organizations that came out of the devastation of the 70s and have mushroomed and benefited and employed local people.
Well, congratulations to you on the great economic and community development you guys are doing through SEPCO. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Good to have you. All righty. What we want to tell you, coming up in just a few seconds, the executive director of the Kingsbridge Riverdale Van Cortlandt Development Corporation, try saying that twice, will join us next to talk about a few exciting upcoming events. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Your education is the key to your future. And if you're a high school student, your next stop is college. A college education gives high school graduates a competitive advantage professionally and financially. Without it, your job opportunities are much more limited. A college diploma is a necessary requirement for any successful tomorrow. So make sure you're prepared. Speak to your guidance counselor. Visit your local colleges. Your education is the key to your future.
You're really not that talented.
You're not attractive.
Too fat.
You're too short.
Too old? Why don't you just give up?
Give up. Give up. Just give up.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize.
If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
The Kingsbridge Riverdale Van Cortlandt Development Corporation's mission is to inspire economic development and revitalize the community in ways that will reflect the vibrant personality of the community. They encourage local initiatives that build educational, social, and environmental endeavors. The executive director, Ms. Tracy Shelton, is here now to tell us more about it and let us in on a few upcoming things, including a festival taking place this weekend. And we welcome you now to the show, Ms. Tracy. Thank you for coming here. So share with us a little bit about the KRVC.
We've been around since 1981. We were incorporated in 1982, so it's like our 30-year anniversary. And we were started by a lot of elected officials, including Councilman Oliver Capel. I hear stories that it was started in his kitchen. Yeah, I was not around at that point, but that it was, I didn't live in the community at that point, but that it was started in his kitchen, and that it was a group of a small group of volunteers who got together and put together this development corporation. And now, you know, it's still a very small not-for-profit in the community. It's a local development corporation, but it has, you know, survived 30 years and done a lot of wonderful things for the community. I've been at KRVC now for 2 years, but prior to that, a lot of the focus was on housing and housing developments and bringing affordable housing into the community, and then some community development and economic development as well. And then, you know, I can tell you more about what we've done in the last 2 years, right, because that's my work.
Talk to us about that, because over the last 2 years there's been a lot of improvement in quality of life as well as community development.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very proud of what we've done over the last 2 years. Since I came in, we've started a couple of merchants associations. We've held a number of festivals. We've done a movie night in the park. We've worked with Con Edison on getting a lot of local businesses to go green and become more energy efficient. We've just done a range of different work. And then what you've seen that has happened in the community as well in the Northwest Bronx is very, very exciting. We're getting a lot of new stores throughout Riverdale. A lot of local new restaurants and that kind of thing, you know, fun stuff's going on there. And then when you look at Broadway in the Bronx, the corridor from 225th Street right up to Van Cortlandt Park, it's amazing what's on the horizon there. I mean, starting down with the Target Mall at 225th Street, which is already there, now we're going to move right on up to a new ice rink, which we're very excited about, the Van Cortlandt Park ice rink in Van Cortlandt Park at the other end of Broadway in the Bronx. And then in the middle, we're looking forward to the new development of Riverdale Crossing. They actually are one of the sponsors of our festival that we have on Sunday. And then also Broadway Plaza, just a little further down. So that whole corridor, you know, we're looking at seeing a real shopping, entertainment destination for the whole tri-state area.
You talked about you took the reins 2 years ago. So when you walked in 2 years ago and you saw what was actually going on in the community, what did you identify as what you would feel is like the major needs?
Economic development, business development, boosting morale, getting people, you know, the economy is very flat, hasn't improved all that much actually. People, you know, really needed that kind of a boost, and it was hard because of the economy to do a lot of real economic development at that point, although it's great we're seeing that happening now. But what I decided to do was let's organize the merchants, let's get them into merchants groups. We've been able to do that successfully in North Riverdale and Woodlawn, and we're working on it in other parts. And get them together, get them talking, get them thinking about what they want to do, how they want their street to look, what kinds of cross promotions they can do, what kinds of events they can do, what kinds of issues they have, how they can address those. It's been really great to see them come together and work on that. And then also I was like, let's throw some parties, you know what I mean? Like, okay, the economy's bad, businesses are struggling, let's have some movie nights, let's have some festivals, let's have some events and things like that, and bring people together, bring the businesses together with art and music and, you know, children's activities, and just, you know, really build the community that way.
And you've got a festival coming up.
We do. We're very excited about it. We're actually going to be back on Friday to talk about it. We're going to bring an artist, and we'll talk more about like all the live music lineup and all of that. But, you know, what I'd like to kind of focus on today is the business development, because we are having it on Johnson Avenue, on between 235th Street and 236th Street. We'll have a stage at one end of the street, but we have all the the businesses along that block involved. We're excited about that. And what Johnson Avenue has is a lot of restaurants, and we have restaurants from all over the world. You know, they represent, you know, Thai food and Japanese food and Chinese food and Italian food and American food and lots of kosher Israeli food. It's going to be exciting because we can bring all of that together right on that block, and that sort of led us to have a whole international theme to this particular festival. The music's international, the art's international, and we just really tried to carry that through. So we're very excited about the festival and really, you know, pulling people to that block and getting them shopping there, eating there, and thinking about, you know, doing all their business locally.
What are the residents in the community? What's been the embrace? Has it been a warm embrace of all the development and the quality of life and improvement? What's it been like for residents in the neighborhood?
I think people are really excited. I mean, I have a huge email database that I send everything out to, and people really respond very much. They're very, very excited. They seem really ripe for stuff like festivals and that kind of thing, and movie nights. Everything we've done has been extremely well attended, well received. Our festival we had in the fall, we had 1,000 people there. Our first movie night, we had 400. I mean, you know, we've really been able to get the people out. So clearly there's excitement in the community about this sort of thing. We've been able to start those merchants associations, get officers elected. They've then gone off and done their own events and started their own initiatives, working with the elected officials. I mean, that's just a wonderful thing to see happening. So it's been very, very well received. I'm pleased. If, you know, I try something and it doesn't go so well, then I don't do it anymore. But you know what? I haven't really had that so much since I've been working at KRVC the last 2 years. Everything we've done has been great. I mean, the biggest struggle is obviously, you know, resources and that kind of thing for a not-for-profit. But in terms of the work and the way that that's received in the community, I think it's needed, I think it's wanted, and it's being used. So I'm excited about that.
How does people find out more information about the KRVC?
We have a website, krvcdc.org, and we also have a website for the Riverdale Festival of the Arts, which is riverdalefestivalofthearts.com. So you can get a lot of information there.
All right. Well, we thank you so much for joining us. And on Friday, you guys will be back and share a little bit more. Huh?
Yeah, definitely. We'll bring some art with us.
Okay. That'll be good. That'll be good. And so you see the sign for the next festival taking place Sunday, May 6th. And we want you to come on out and be a part of that. And that festival will be Sunday, May 6th. Well, that about wraps it up for all we have. And it's been a pleasure coming into your homes. Of course, we want to thank our guests for joining us. But most of all, we want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, you can tune in tonight for the recablecast of Open at 10 p.m. on Channel 67. If you're on Verizon Fios, that is Channel 33. Of course, you can catch a brand new, fresh episode on Friday at 10 a.m. with my girl, Rena Valentine, and the KRVC. As we said, we'll also be back here as well. We encourage you to have an amazing week. I'm Darren Jaime. We encourage you to also keep your heart, your mind, and this channel wide open. Take care.
Your education is the key to your future. And if you're a high school student, your next stop is college. A college education gives high school graduates a competitive advantage professionally and financially. Without it, your job opportunities are much more limited. A college diploma is a necessary requirement for any successful tomorrow. So make sure you're prepared. Speak to your guidance counselor. Visit your local colleges. Your education is the key to your future.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, girl, Nicole, good luck on the play tonight. You're welcome. What's up, guys? Now you're gonna make sure that you return those on Monday, right? Thank you. Oh, nice. We'll talk to you for a second. Go ahead, have a second. Get your water. Come on, let me get your water. Get out the way.
Can you tell which of these children was not born free? Can you tell which of these children was not born